Clothing while queer. That's what we're going to talk about today. A couple of years ago, when I originally came out as a transgender woman, I felt like I had a very, very full plate. I had so many practical things that I needed to take care of. I needed to come out to my family. I needed to come out to my friends. And the least of my worries at that point in time was something like clothing. I didn't think it would be that big of a deal, but as I would soon realize, apparently, it is. Now, I know you might be raising your eyebrow at me. You might be thinking, well, Scribbs, what are you talking about? In the grand scheme of the huge life-changing decision that is to transition, clothing is the least of your worries. Well, my friend, while that might be true to your experience, then to everyone else, it will be the very first thing that they notice. They might notice your mood being better. They might notice you being happier overall. They're definitely noticing if you wear something completely different one day than you did the other. And honestly, when I first discovered the roadblock of this giant amount of exploration that I still needed to do, I felt like I could have really used a guide to, or at least some tips to somewhat maneuver me through that hellscape, because it can be a very stressful one. So while I am not the perfect guide by any sort of means, then I will still try my best to give out the sort of tips and things that I have learned now as someone who is quite a few years into my transition, and at the very least share my stories with you guys as to how I handled this back when I was a young baby tran. So you know what, let's just start off right off the bat. Let's start at the earliest of times. Actually, not the earliest of times, but pretty early, when this starts to matter. The pre-transition phase. This is the phase that I define as the twilight between you actually transitioning and you realizing you are trans. Because before that realization, you're sort of doing weirdly okay-ish. It's very likely that everything around you has just been white noise. You haven't cared remotely about clothing or perhaps even your looks up until this point in your life. But it has been nothing overwhelming, at least until you find out that yeah, you're trans. This is also what I like to refer to as the nightmare phase. The reason that I call it the nightmare phase is because out of all of them, this is the one that sucks the most. It's where you feel the most of those negative emotions, but there's just not that many ways to alleviate it right at this time, especially if you're still stealthing and you haven't come out of the closet yet. And honestly, one of the ways that I used to deal with this, the main ways I used to deal with this, and this is where I'm gonna need you guys to keep a straight face, because this is just the truth. Underwear. I'm not very good at drawing underwear. But yes, that is actually the truth. One of the ways that I did alleviate some of the struggle was at least knowing, at least to myself, that I was presenting, at least under everything else, I was presenting to myself as my actual gender. Now, with this very specific piece of advice, I actually want to talk to transgender women directly, because they're probably the ones that are going to have the most problems with this. Because ever since the dawn of time when it comes to media, we've been gonged in the head and socialized to think that this sort of stuff might be a little fetishistic. So I just want to get that out of your head immediately. I have bought women's underwear. I did it. That was one of the first things that I did. And I am sure as shit certain that that's what a lot of other transgender women did as well. There is nothing gross about exploring your gender identity or what you would like to wear, whether if you're trans or cis. That is some bullshit, and in an ideal society, I would burn that rule immediately. But yes, this piece of advice actually helped me a lot, because it just made me feel like if I wasn't transitioning like in front of others, I could at least transition like for myself. Like I could see myself taking those small steps for myself. One of those other small steps that I also took was exploring a little bit with stuff like makeup. For me, very specifically, like mascara, eyeliner, all that type of jazz, foundation, just in general, like self-care, shaving, growing my hair out. Both of those things are something that you can try while still remaining very stealthy, very, or at least quite safe. I don't know about the eyeliner, but pretty much everything else. And the reason for that is cis people are dense motherfuckers. If people don't suspect you to be queer or aren't very aware of queer culture, then as long as you're lightly concealing the fact that you're wearing a bra or a binder, trust me, people will not notice. I was very surprised by how far I could actually get into my transition before people started asking like, wait, are you perhaps not a straight man? But yeah, you can certainly try out some of these things. You can definitely explore your gender identity while remaining under the radar. You don't have to worry about that too much, so I still encourage that even if you pre-transition, that you explore yourself a bit. Heading into the actual transition phase though, this is where it gets a little, not, or well, Of course, it gets dicey for everyone, but it also gets a bit dicey for me to explain because this is where people's problems start deviating a lot when it comes to this stuff. I've been a part of queer communities for a very long time, and I have a bunch of friends of different genders and cultural backgrounds. It still feels like every single time I meet a new person, I stumble on a new issue that someone personally had with transitioning that I haven't heard of before. So I'm just gonna try to break these into the most common and the ones that I've heard of the most. And then, of course, as well, my own experience. But let's first talk about some of the issues that trans men have, because one of their issues is something that might at first glance be perceived as a bonus in the pre-transition phase, and that is that because very specifically when it comes to clothing, then people who are assigned women at birth have less restrictions than people who are assigned male at birth. You can explore more and wear different kinds of stuff, and people don't really expect any different. You can be stealthier while trying more different things. But when it comes to actually transitioning and being out of stealth, the issue remains the exact same. I am friends with guys with beards who've been misgendered in public places just because they were mistaken for butch. And I understand that it's incredibly frustrating. Sure, it's very liberating that the box for what women can wear is so wide that you can wear pretty much anything and people still don't question it. But still, that also just makes it so much harder when you actually want to get out of that box. With this one, I wish I had a lot more advice to give, but I don't really have much except this one thing, which is mannerisms. Guys just don't really have as gender-defined clothing as women do, so it's not really as much about what you're wearing as opposed to like how you're wearing it, I guess. But yeah, mannerisms, the way guys talk and communicate with each other and kind of like act and stand around in a space, is one of the primary ways that I've heard others have sort of learned to pass better. Like for example, right now I'm trying to be quite feminine, I use gestures, I try to use a lot of intonation in my voice, and then if I sort of go back down into like more of a monologue-y state, and I don't know, it's not because I want to sound inexcitable, I can still use my intonation just fine, but if I am more monologue and static like this, that's kind of gonna give more off of a guy behavior. Again, I'm very sorry. I wish I could give better advice when it comes to this stuff, but my own male mannerisms isn't something that I've kept an incredibly close eye on. It's not something that I've hyper-analyzed. If anything, it's been something that I've been desperately trying to get rid of. So if you're actually a transgender man who's looking for proper good advice on how to pass as a trans man, then I highly recommend that you go look up and learn from other transgender men. When it comes to transgender women though, I do have more experience, and I will fully admit they have some different issues. And one of them is actually surprisingly discrimination. Trust me, both experience discrimination to incredible degrees. But when it comes to like widespread societally known stereotypes, transgender women are very specifically in the focus here, to the point that while it might not be offensive for someone with a feminine frame to wear masculine clothing, then it is certainly offensive to a lot of people if someone of a masculine frame wears something feminine. It's stupid, but that is how it is in a lot of places. Now, the way that I dealt with this is something I'm sure is quite an unpopular option, and it's not something that I think at least a lot of people have done. I certainly didn't enjoy it when I did it, but basically I did the androgyny to male-fail process. And what this means is I literally continue to wear the same stuff. I didn't change my style or anything at all. Or maybe I switched maybe a bit more androgynously, but that's all I did. And then I waited for hormones to take its work. I waited for my hair to grow out. I waited for me to get better at makeup. I waited to get better at mannerisms until eventually people started every now and again assuming that I was a woman based on looks, even while I was wearing kind of masculine clothing. And yeah, honestly, this one sucks. I don't recommend it because it means you're gonna get misgendered a lot. And it also means that you'll be holding yourself back a lot from trying those things that you actually want to try. I mean, I literally got my first dress to try like a couple of months ago, and I've been in a transition for freaking years. Now, the unrestricted transition is also one that I kind of hesitantly recommend, even though I want it on the record that I think it is everyone's God-given right to wear whatever the fuck they want and whatever makes them happy at any time without anyone discriminating them. The only reason I am unfortunately a bit hesitant is because we do not live in that ideal society and people can be assholes. Basically, what I mean by the unrestricted way of transitioning style-wise is just that you decide to go all in. As soon as you come out of the closet, you embrace yourself fully, you buy all those things you've been holding yourself back from, and you just go and do do it trial by fire and wear whatever you want. I think it's goddamn beautiful, and I know so many beautiful people who have gone this exact way of transitioning, but I have heard some pretty rough feedback from it, such as the fact that this is probably the way of transitioning that will give you the most discrimination, just due to the fact that you're a little clumsy in the beginning. You haven't picked up on all those different mannerisms and ways that you can like present as your chosen gender. You basically transition a lot in public as opposed to in private, and of course that just opens you up a bit more to discrimination. So if you have the gusto and the willpower to do it, then I recommend this method, but I do also understand people who don't want to do it. I mean, I didn't. I went just about as restrictive as you could be because I was so scared of discrimination. If I were to go back in time, I would probably pick some compromise between these two, but I would lean way more to the unrestricted side. I went through the restricted one, and while sure, I had some safety, I also didn't explore anything. It was basically only with the pressure of my girlfriend like a year ago that I even started the process of exploring what my own style is and what I like to wear. And hey, guess what? As soon as I wore stuff that I like to wear, I felt more like myself than I'd ever done before. So I know it's really hard, and I know it's really intimidating to try to explore or wear more stuff, then I still would lean more to recommending this one as opposed to this one. Explore, have fun, enjoy being yourself, and hey, even if you can't do it in public, do it in private. Just buy clothing for you to wear while walking at home alone. The only thing that I don't recommend you do is you go so far in the unrestricted, specifically also in terms of where you live, that it would be a danger to you, or it would be a risk to you in any way. But anyways, that is all the advice I could give. I'm so sorry if this is a very incoherent video to give a little bit of a concept. I've been recording this for over an hour because I've been so nervous of what to say, and I don't really know if I gave good advice. I really hope that you at least got some out of it, but nonetheless, then it was fun to look back on some of my own pretty silly mistakes that I did when it came to approaching clothing when I first came out, of which the biggest mistake was not making enough mistakes. I didn't go out and I didn't try a lot of things. I played it way too safe, and due to that, I ended up suffering a lot longer than I needed to. There was a lot longer of a period of time where I still felt like the me that I wanted to be was so far away, and like the steps were there, but I was just refusing to take them. So go out there, no matter if you're transgender, if you're cis even, and you just want to explore like a new you and what kind of different clothing that you might actually like and enjoy wearing. Could be a femboy, could be a tomboy, whatever you want to be. Remember to take good care of yourself, and remember to be safe, but also go out there and make a fuck ton of mistakes. Wear stuff that you have a suspicion that you might enjoy but end up not liking at all. Wear stuff that might not even fit you at all, because honestly, having fun and feeling like you're showing yourself to the world is all this self-expression stuff is about. But anyways, genuinely thank you all so much for watching this sappy video, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.